Sure.
Hello, welcome to the July 26th Environmental Management Commission meeting. We have quorum. We have a couple missing temporarily, but with those on screen, we've got 5 of us. And those 5 are on Zoom. We have Laura Casio from District 2. Laura. And also Melissa Cardwell, who's from District 5. And Lee McIntosh has a view for his screen, but he's there. So we'll zoom past
there he
his
is.
chair. The invisible Lee McIntosh will hopefully show up shortly. He's from District 6. In the room here in Kona, we have Dot Norris from District 8. I'm Georgine Adams, District 9, and John Olson from District 4. John Burns is out on the water someplace taking samples. Hi Lee, and there's Lee McIntosh. And Della Tsuka is trying to figure out how she gets to the Civic Center. So Peter may have to dive down and give her direction to slide her down. But she too will be joining us. We have 1 vacancy in District 7. And again, if anybody knows people down in South Kona, Warrior Kona area, encourage them to apply to the commission. So I hereby officially call the meeting to order with quorum at whatever time it is.
9:12.
Whatever time our secretary says. First agenda item is the approval of the minutes from our June 23rd meeting. And we can get a motion from John, a second from Dorothy Norris. Any corrections to be made? Laura, we're not hearing you. Nothing. Okay.
Nothing.
We have hands up for approval. Everybody in the room
6.
for approval. Thank you for the minutes. Once again, a yeoman job from Peter, sir, listening and correcting the crazy transcriptions of that. Statement from the chair. Item 3. Hopefully we'll get lots of information from the county, and we'll move through our items here. Got some good written testimony on our item 5.2, and I'm looking forward to the discussion on that item.
We have 1 testifier.
We do have 1
Yes.
in-person testifier.
On Zoom, Miss Jennifer Navarro.
Jennifer, okay. Well, that's the next item. Is Jennifer on the Zoom?
I'm here. Hi. Just want to briefly give testimony on page 2, regarding the landfill diversion ordinance. I think that the ordinance is coming along really well with the new edits, and I think there's additional room for improvement. I think that it's at a point now that I'd like to encourage the EMC to start engaging with the county council on this ordinance, and get their input and feedback on ways to improve it. Something that could possibly be an area for improvement is adding in a little carrot with the stick. So not only banning certain items from diversion, but giving an incentive for businesses such as Atlas or, Mr. K's to a diversion credit for accepting more types of recyclables from diversion. There's also costs that businesses take on for the sorting of recyclables, like a large hotel might not do recycling because, it brings on a lot of costs for the labor. So having a diversion credit in some way, how do we get funding for that? I think that's a question. I think one idea that has been done in other municipalities out of Alameda County, the Stop Waste program, and also the whole state of Colorado, they take a portion of the tipping fees and then put that directly back into diversion programs. I think that's something that we could look at as a way to fund more diversion in the county. But there might be other opportunities or other ideas. So anyways, I think it's time to take this discussion outside of the EMC, and hopefully you guys will do that today and start engaging with the county council on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Are there any other members of the public who would like to present testimony? Dell looking for directions. So, I definitely encourage people to, if you haven't already, the written comments. They got it. Okay. And I do appreciate that. I know it takes a lot of time to read through all the materials and to think about options. Do we have anybody from DEM in the room or on the line? I don't think we do.
I think we do.
Participants.
I don't know how to get them. Oh, there, we got Kelly.
Okay. Okay.
Ramsey's here too. I see his name. And Craig.
Okay, well, our next item is unfinished business, item 5.
It's Chris Laude.
And if Chris Lottie's on the Zoom, I will ask my never-ending question of retreatment rules. Are they ready for presentation? I didn't see them in the package, so I assume we have nothing written yet that we can look at, but is that ice cream you're eating, Melissa?
No.
Terry was out, he knows that that's not something he needs to write up in minutes. Is Chris on the line?
No.
No, okay, we'll defer that until, Chris Lottie shows up unless Ramsey is there and wants to speak to it. Is he on?
Ramsey's here.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I gotta wear my sunglasses. I got a sty or allergy on my eyes, so I feel like somebody just punched me on the eye, so it may look weird with the sunglasses on, but I think, as you all know, we short-staffed. We don't have Chris and Mark. That's my only division staff, so bear with us. Things may take longer till we start securing engineers. We have vacancies, but unfortunately, we cannot fill them. So it just Kelly, Mark, and Chris. That's the only 3 staff members that do these administrative work for the entire department. So
I appreciate it. I wish I knew the answer. I'm too long away from working in the field to have people to recommend, and I wish I did. Maybe you have contacts who would.
if somebody willing to volunteer to take on the edits and write in the codes, that'll be good as well. You guys could help as well if I'm not still in my bounds on reaching out for assistance.
Well, I could be, maybe interested, I have been working on another one for you, but, if I got something in writing to work from, working off a cold, I'm not gonna write it de novo, that's what I've been fiddling with for the solid waste, but if, as soon as you could share a draft, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have a draft. Chris started the draft before we, he took the position of the acting chief because he's wearing multiple hats. He's still going out doing some inspection and construction projects we have as well. So, but he has a draft. I would love to, maybe you and I and him sit down and give that draft to you and maybe that would help if you don't mind.
I'll give it a shot, it's been a while and wastewater really isn't my area of expertise, but I can read a rule and I can write more or less sentences.
That's good. I hear that that's good.
Okay,
Yeah, maybe if you share that with me too, I might have some people who,
okay,
yeah,
council, who of us comment on drafts?
Yes.
Okay. Get it to us and we will see what we can get back.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, item 5.2, this county landfill diversion. And I've been calling it a ban because that's what it is. The intent is, I hope you guys have had a chance to look. I did some tinkering. And in fact, I could tinker ever on the language. And I guess I need to agree with Jennifer. I think it's time. What do you want to do, guys, on this idea of coming up with an ordinance followed by DEM rules to start banning or diverting, if you will, recyclables that we know we can recycle on this island, and that we might be able to incentivize by providing a stream of feedstock to new businesses or existing businesses that could expand to accept things. So there are lots of issues that we need to talk through, but it could be the discussion occurring more within the communication with council representative and council. So I'm not sure just how much detail we should be dealing with right now, as opposed to saying, here's the concept. Is there anybody on council who's willing to help us move it? If there are some things in here that you absolutely cannot support, I did, if you got yourself through to the end of the draft ordinance, put up a very simplified administrative option to just come up with a new article in the county code that would deal with landfill diversion. And it would authorize the EM the right roles to identify categories of recyclable waste that are covered, who is prohibited from disposing as trash, those designated recyclable products or waste in one way, at a county solid waste facility, and who can use the transfer stations, and be able to create a fee schedule and reporting requirements, and to provide rules that would provide exemptions. So that would be just kind of broad, do it DEM with all your massive staff you have available to write rules, without much guidance from the council. I mean, I could pretty much guarantee that council members will have some opinions, they want to get in there, so it would expand from there. Or we could throw them, we could throw them my draft as a starting place, maybe, that we could use to go back and forth and discuss. So I guess I have two questions. Are we ready to move and try to hook us with council? And do you have some specific things that you absolutely want to lay down? No, we don't support this. Yes, we support that. Or can we just leave it more open?
If I may,
John,
we need to do all of that in face of not leading to enhancing illegal dumping. I mean, that's the bottom line. We don't want to do anything that is going to enhance the reason to illegally dump. Right, so once you get over that hurdle, I mean, we're back again to this whole thing of having to monetize, you know, all of this in a way that leads us to encouraging recycling and reuse. Now, I've thrown out my thing, you know, about how to go about that, and I certainly would like to hear what anybody else has to say to get to that end.
one of the concepts, there are a couple of things that I tried to build into the draft was one that we would phase this in, start with commercial entities and tell them you have to recycle this stuff or divert it or not generate waste in the first place. That would establish, you know, they've got their logistics, they've got people that can do things. And it would be a fairly steady stream. So that it would be enough in the stream of the feedstock that haulers and recycle people could count on getting this kind of waste in on a fairly routine basis. And they'd have hopefully enough money to support that. Once that gets established, and maybe we see some more businesses in the recycling goods loop, if you will. Then we could look at going to smaller businesses and then maybe, and then eventually to residents and saying, as a resident, you cannot trash reuse, for example. It has to go into this chute or this container, and you've got to find somebody to haul it or do it yourself. So trying to phase it in so that it's practical, it's not going to encourage illegal dumping. But yeah, that's a really big concern. And one of the things that I tried to build in there is that DEM wouldn't do anything unless there was expectation that it could indeed be recycled. And that people had availability of recyclers to get it done. So kind of a stepwise thing, and that was why, you know, start with the things that we are currently recycling and try to grow them. Hand up from Laura.
Hello all, good morning commissioners. Thank you, Chair. My question is it's a perfect transition to that. Why what is folks mana'o on the language in the draft ordinance that specifies what we're currently able to recycle at this time, as opposed to a little bit more general language about whatever the county has programs for cannot go down the chute, for example, because I'm just wondering if that means we would have to amend the ordinance every time the county comes forward with a new recycling program or a new item that can be recycled. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so just wondering folks mana'o on that, instead of just to say the programs that the county has recycling for cannot go down the chute. A little bit more general. I mean, it might be different language, but as opposed to specifying them.
And or it has a chute to go down, it just isn't the county.
Yeah, it could be that you could take it to Mr. K's, you could take it to Atlas. It doesn't have to go through the county.
And that would mean that they would have to. Have
Buy-
the facilities to do that,
Yes.
for the equipment to do that. So that opens another door as to, how are they gonna fund that? Are they gonna get a loan or grant from the county in order for them to help us do that with the county effort?
Is there an economy?
Yeah.
And that was,
yeah,
Jennifer
that's
had commented about having, some kind of credit. The financing of all this stuff is, always the challenge. One of the things that I was hoping for is that we would push toward private businesses building up. And then what the county would be doing and through an ordinance saying, we'll guarantee you that you're gonna be getting stuff, because we've banned landfill. Will that be enough to expand services? Don't know. But that was one of the things, again, I was trying to set this up, the DEM would have to evaluate whether or not any particular recyclable met criteria. People can get there is a way to collect it and get it recycled. And that it makes sense from a life cycle standpoint to do that. And the DEM would have to make a finding. And I don't know if the county does findings. I come from federal rulemaking, so I'm a little bit different, but of saying, here are the things we found out, that this is available to this size organization and this kind of waste, and then write out the facts. And it would either be there or not. And if they couldn't support that it was a feasible thing to do, they couldn't get it.
which I think brings us all the way back to monetizing it at the point of purchase.
Which we can't do.
Well,
Unless
I'm
we
not
go to the
believing that
state.
we
You
can't do anything. I really haven't lived, I can't do it life. And so
But what I
it
heard
is
from
costing us now. It has already been monetized. The monetization of it is what it costs us now to dispose of it. That's the bottom line. So how much more do we have to pile on top of that to get the private sector to take over where the governmental sector wants to leave off? Does that make sense?
the funding has always been a challenge for us. What I heard from corporation council was that no, the county cannot have a point of purchase tax, fee, call it whatever you want to get money from. The state would have to. We, as a commission, can make the recommendation to council and to DEM that they push for such a state rule. And in fact, we has done a little bit of that with a letter that we sent to the state solid waste group saying, have you looked at when to purchase? And if you haven't, would you? We think it's a really good idea. Have not got a response yet, have we, Peter? To our letter?
Not from, well, I'll defer to council on that one.
We got a response, but we're still trying to figure out what the response actually is. They acknowledged receipt of our request and they are working on something. And I should have that ready for you folks by our next meeting.
Okay, good.
So we'll get some idea of what it costs us to dispose of it now.
Nobody's doing a study on that.
I
That's
see.
not.
No, it was
Well-
more how
Are they
could or
looking-
would the state be interested in having a way to purchase fee to support recycling stuff disposal.
Yes.
Okay, maybe corporate counsel can help me out here, but we are already paying for the disposal. It lands on this island, and we eventually end up with it coming out of the property tax, the disposal costs.
And to big fees, depending on who's doing the disposal.
Well, but I mean, 99.9% of it, unless it, like the bottle bill, which is a statewide thing. Right, so. But I mean, the bottom line is that if it lands on this island, we get the bill for its disposal, whatever it is.
I don't think it's quite that simple.
Never is.
Could I go to other commissioners?
Yeah, please.
Lee? Megan?
Yes, I had three things. It shouldn't lead to increased dumping because these are recyclables that you can drop off at the canisters as you're going to the dump. At least most transfer stations. I haven't been to all of them. And let's see. Are the other in the code, are the other items that are not allowed or banned to be dumped, are they also listed? Or is it left up to DEM to determine that? So then it wouldn't be necessary for us to list each individual recyclable. And the other thing is, have we gotten any feedback from DEM about what we're proposing? See what they have to say and then incorporate that. And then I don't know if we can forward it on to the council or if we have to send it to DEM and DEM sends it to the council. I'm sure there's some process we have to follow.
Okay, and relative to the way I set up the draft, which I expect to be beat up in conversations with others, and especially at the council, is that DEM would be required within the first year to evaluate the list of recyclables that we are doing right now, which is high five, corrugated, non-high five glass, green waste, and scrap metal. And that is not available at every transfer station. There are some limited ones for green waste, for example, and scrap metal. I think everybody's got glass and corrugated and high five, but the process that I had in mind was DEM would evaluate these listed, the current recyclables, and say whether or not they could support a ban, that there would be a practical way to expect people to meet it. Again, starting with commercial, not residential. Residential would come after we work out the details. So that what I'm not sure, because I didn't set it up that way, the suggestion I think Laura had was we don't want to have to go to the councils every time we add a recyclable to the ban. So try to figure out how you get council to authorize DEM once they've made the finding that yep, we think this is feasible, then they write a rule and it exists. So the DEM would be issuing rules that would say, okay, we've added food waste, or we've added plastic number 2, non-high five, to the list. So yeah, I would not want to have to go back to council and get a code revision every time. That it would turn into DEM, and that is something Corporation Council can work on and how to do it. The other thing just left my brain, so forget that. The DEM has not given me any feedback on this. And that's another thing, I want to come out of this meeting, yeah, I'd like some feedback on this. What would they like to see? But the idea would be annually, DEM would have to do a status report on where are you on recycling. One thing I haven't quite figured out how to do, and I backed off with by this year, you have to reduce volumes going to landfill by X%. I just said, in general, they've got to report how much they've reduced the amount of stuff going. Right now, we're averaging, it's 15,000 tons a month or something. That it needs to drop by, set a date, 2030, 2035, 2059. It's got to drop by 50%. So I would set a target, and then they've got to report back to council. Here this is where we're at on meeting the target. This is what we're trying to do. And so have some bit of a pressure on DEM to get reduction, but not have the council say, all right, we're going to ban only. Because I don't think that's important. Melissa.
So I have a couple of thoughts. Sorry, you have to excuse me. I have kind of a bad cold, but so yeah, a couple of things come up for me. And maybe this is just a detail that would have to be ironed out at some point, but the first thing is just like a practical matter of enforcement. Like, for example, kind of like what Lee said, like right now at the transfer station, I use mostly the KL transfer station. There are like multiple bins to properly dispose of things. You know, you've got your glass, your metal, your cardboard, but that doesn't stop people from throwing all that stuff in the dump. And so I guess my question is like, how would this be enforced? You know, and I guess I'm speaking mainly from a residential trash perspective, because someone could easily throw a bunch of glass, for instance, in a trash bag and then just dump that, you know, like, so how, yeah, so my question is like, how are we going to enforce this? Like, we can ban all these things from being thrown away, but if there's no one to enforce it, then it's sort of meaningless, I guess. And then my second thing is, my concern is that kind of like what Del said, like, is the convenience factor. Like right now, in my mind, it's pretty convenient to properly dispose of things at the KL transfer station. You just have to go to multiple bins. But if someone has to go to, you know, a transfer station and Mr. K's and a high five place, and like, you know, people aren't going to do that. I mean, for myself, like if I want to properly dispose of things, I got to go to Mr. K's for electronics. I got to go to the high five place for my high five stuff. Then I got to go to the dump for all the other stuff. It's a very inefficient system, which brings me to my third point, which I don't think in an ideal world, we would have curbside pickup. People could just have the bins, like most other places where they need to put their recycling, their food waste, their blah blah blah, and it's picked up, and that's it. So I know that we're far from that, and we, you know, don't have the money, we don't have the infrastructure, but my concern is kind of what John said, like, okay, so we can ban all these things, but again, then what? Like, if we don't have a convenient place for people to bring the stuff, then I don't know. It's an incomplete solution in my mind. So those are my thoughts.
And one of the things that I'm hoping that we'll hear from DEM is the status of the operation study that they've got coming up, if not already in place, of looking at curbside, because that is the best way to do it, which is why I was starting with commercial. Commercial, we can do some enforcement on it. It's bulk stuff. They're already taking some of it. You can swing by and look and see in their dumpster and go, hey, what are you doing to stop this? Even require them to do some pollution prevention recycling report at some point. Moving it to residential, part of it is just peer pressure, if you will. This stuff is banned in this county and we've got ways to do the collection if we just get in gear and do it. In the meantime, we keep looking for ways to make it easier. If we can get more businesses in place for pickup and recycling that are handling commercial, they could then move to picking up residential. And a way to step toward it initially, no. On the other hand, you can start going into haulers and the people who are picking up the big trash bins from different locations. You can say, hey, what's in there? Where's that coming from? And couple it with education programs. When Senna was here at DEM, we were trying to work on a program for volunteer master recyclers who could be at the transfer station saying, wait, don't put that in the trash chute, put that here. Or don't put things wrapped up in a bag in the recyclables. So education is a large part of it to stop residents from doing it wrong. In San Francisco, they've got cops that look in the bins and they give you tags, and if you get too many tags, you get penalized. If you knock on your door and they say, here's what you've got to do, and if you don't do it, here's the bill. I don't think we're going that far, but it would be an employment program potentially. But yeah, it's tough. And so we're trying to make sure people can do the right thing conveniently and will do the right thing conveniently. Laura.
We have a hand up.
Do Laura and then I'll come to you.
Okay, just really quickly, I want to echo your statement around education. I think that's critical to really engage our population, and it's really an ohana, it's a whole family, you know, it's a whole family. And it can come into play really carefully in our school system as well. But in terms of curbside pickup, I just wanted to quickly comment, like if we are truly adopting and going towards zero waste, which is the model that I truly believe in as well, is that curbside pickup will not be viable, you know, in terms of if we're making less waste, then that expense and that whole infrastructure to develop that is no longer relevant. So thank you.
Well, based on what was saying a while ago, reminded me that when you're talking about studies, and for the DM to report to us about their studies with the private companies, haulers that pick up these different recyclable things, are they required to let us know what kind of trash, if they have only that, which means that maybe we should be talking to them to see how we can better, maybe signage, I don't know, to make it so that whatever they pick up is what they're picking up. Because they're having to go over and beyond if they're receiving other stuff. So I would think they'd be communicating with the Department of Environmental Management about what stuff they are picking up. So maybe then the DVM can do some studies about how not to. Because we're gonna lose the haulers if they're gonna be picking up all kinds of trash and having to separate it themselves. So I think maybe it's good that we have a conversation with the different haulers about how the process is going for them. If they're, if they're having any problems that they can talk to us about so that we can address that on that scale, because we won't get haulers to do any of that if we can't help the ones we have. I say.
Well, I've been working on, and it's putting me off monthly, but maybe next month, Nick Resnick from Hawai'i Recycling. All he does is pick up recycling. He doesn't pick up trash. He just does recycling. Business services, I'm not sure if they used to do
Cardboards.
pickup, whether they're still doing it, but it's a separate pickup, separate bins. So it isn't that they're doing sorting out of their trash.
Or no, but I was saying, once they do the haul, if they find stuff that don't belong there, they should be letting the DNR know that this is what they're getting, so it can help us better.
I certainly we would hope that the DEM would be talking to the whole cycle of who's out there and making the finding that it's feasible to get done. There is somebody who will go pick your stuff up.
But are they? I mean,
And one of the reasons that I've been talking with Nick, he's got some commercial business. And thinks he could get more commercial business if there were a hammer saying you can't landfill that stuff, so that the generator is sorting it out. I mean, he's got a hauler has the ability to go back to his customer and say, you're giving me trash. I'm gonna charge you for that.
but when they pick up truckloads, they're not just taking from one truck.
It's not a truck, I mean, picking up a bin from their customers.
And then they're dumping it, and they dump the
Commercial,
next
commercial.
one, right, and they dump the next one, so it's not like,
Dumping, they're taking material that presumably is recyclable. And putting it on their thing, and they're taking it to Atlas or business services,
okay,
who then take it and say, that's full of crap, I'm not taking it. So then it works back to the generator, the business in this case, who handed off as recyclable something that isn't. And they get dinged, they're gonna pay me.
well, I guess I'm looking at it as, we have those collection bins at the transfer station. We've got cardboard and glass.
Yeah, that's a whole separate issue.
But
of
I'm
the
talking about,
contamination at the transfer station.
but when we're talking about,
Residential,
And
yeah,
it's
so,
residential
residential.
so you were talking about only commercial?
to start with.
Okay.
Because residential has lots of other issues, and a lot of that is around education.
Mhm.
Don't put the wrong kind of cans and bottles in the bins. And don't put the paper, and even though you'd like to recycle it, it's not recyclable at this time. So education on sorting. But even at the recycler, and we've heard Mr. K tell us, everybody treats his operation like a transfer station. And gives them everything that they think is recyclable. And good soul that he is, he separates it out and he tries to get it recycled. My concern about Mr. K is he's getting old. How are we going to support Mr. K? Because he's a good soul, and I appreciate what he's doing, but there are lots of hurdles separate from starting with commercial. And this is, again, I'm kind of a let's phase it, let's pilot it, let's see if it works. What do we need to improve? How do we build education programs? So we're still trying to get a public information officer hired in the DEM to help put together some of these programs. So yeah, I don't have all the answers, guys. It's gonna be working incrementally.
Well, I mean, I hate to do this to you, but the fact of the matter is we gotta back up to where the transfer stations are. I mean, which is what you just did. And if you could more inconveniently cite them, I dare you to do it. I think the county has already accomplished that. And they are the most inconvenient places that you could possibly imagine to get to. And once you've gotten there, you know, getting out is a life-threatening event. So, you know, it's the whole thing is it's a mess.
It's a mess, and I hope shortly to get to Craig's report on the operations analysis. That's one of the things I believe we'll be looking at.
Yeah.
And it's one of the factors that before we ban landfill, we've got to have viable options. Which includes education for people that quit making so much waste. Buy smaller things, buy only, buy big bulk. Anyway, there are lots of ways to achieve zero waste. So back to my earlier question, and maybe more explicit. Could I get a motion that we contact Heather Kimball as chair of the council and say, we'd like to begin. And think you need to start thinking of a county charter amendment that would start us on the path to reducing how much material goes to our landfill by banning certain recyclable materials.
So moved.
Just chart amendments, but rules, laws. bills.
This series, first you go to the council, they've got to authorize DEM, they've got to come up with some little hammer that says, this is what we want you to do. And then authorize rulemaking, and rulemaking will get into the nitty gritty of who, how, what. With reports back to us as well as the council to make sure progress is being made.
Well, the only
Oh,
addition.
sorry, there's no second yet.
There isn't a first, I can't.
Point of-
Oh, I'm sorry.
Point of clarification,
There,
point of clarification.
yes.
Just wondering, is this is only for the commercial, or it's like how you had mentioned commercial and then evolving eventually to residential?
Evolve,
Thank you.
start with commercial.
Second,
I mean, there's.
Sorry, who made the motion?
I made the motion. I don't think you guys heard me. Yeah, I said so moved.
I'll second the motion.
All right, more
Discussion.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, we've got to be able to move these things along in parallel. None of them is going to stand up on its own to any kind of significant revision. I mean, you can't just pull out one little section and hope it will move forward on its own legs, because everything is connected to everything. So, we've got to do a better job of describing what we're going to do and how we're going to do it on a broader sense. Just that one thing isn't, we're not gonna get very far with that, because everybody's gonna wanna know, what about the rest of it? We better have an answer for what about the rest of it.
The rest of it, including things like put the transfer stations in better places and with better access. Is that
Darn.
what you're talking?
Darn. She's trainable, yeah.
I was on the committee that wrote a solid waste management plan with 80 different recommendations in it. Anyway, I mean, there's a whole pile of things, yes, that need to be done and prioritized. This is but one component of many. Moving a whole smear of things through council and expecting DEM to be able to manage it all, I think is unrealistic.
Well,
So I
okay.
was trying to look at what could we do, baby steps, to begin to reduce the quantity going on.
Well, let me make there's management and there's oversight. I don't think we wanted the county to be managing it, we want the county to have oversight. Because that comes from the budget. That comes from the county budget, and it does have a role to play. But in terms of the management, we're gonna do a whole lot better, and this is where we always get ourselves in trouble, is that you try to manage these people's private businesses. You're not gonna win that one. They have to make a living doing what you want them to do. So,
We can talk with, as an example, with Nick, hopefully next month, about can he make a business of it? What are the hurdles in making a business? I do not want to add more responsibilities in actually handling trucking and collection and sorting and whatnot. DEM's got enough with just managing the existing transfer station and the landfill. What we wanna do is lower the volume going to that landfill because it's running out of space. And when it finishes having any room to put more junk in it, what are we gonna do?
Your backyard.
I don't have been, so there. So the push, the pressure for this is we've got to figure a way to reduce landfill. The next hurdle, which is also ongoing to a degree right now, I need to pick up more of the buses. Waste management expects to make money too. And the way they make it is by the pounds going into their landfill. So what I'm talking about is reducing the number of pounds going into their landfill, which means contract renegotiation. So yeah, there are many moving parts to this whole system.
Well, I mean, the whole thing, is we even have a landfill. I mean, that is the best the 19th century can bring you. You know, right there at the top, is that, there it is.
I think this is a good start, Georgine. And, you know, I don't know if you guys remember, but our previous director, I'm blanking on his name, but do you guys remember that? Yeah, when we asked him about the amount of time that we had with the Kona landfill, he said 100 years. And that was only a couple years ago. And now we've exponentially decreased that time. And now we have about 15 years, right? So we have to do something. I mean, and I think that this is a good start. And I think that there's going to be a lot of details that are just going to have to be ironed out, you know, and but to sit back and do nothing and to say, well, you know, it's too difficult, it's this, it's that, you know, that's not really an option. We have 15 years, and that you know, and the amount of trash that's going in, that amount of time might decrease again, you know, we don't know. And so I think unless we want to dig another or have another landfill, then we have to do something. So anyway, I think it's a good place to start.
Melissa, Lee, you had a comment?
Got a hand up over.
Oh, Lee.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think the two directors had different ways of, I mean, they're just predictions, but I think they had different ways of coming to their predictions. And so I think that's why there's a difference between actually, I think he began with 150 years to now 15 or 20. So I wouldn't put much stock in that. I would just focus on the current one that we have, about 20 years, and work on division.
And we can have Ramsey comment again on what.
Yeah, I just want to let you know, there's never been 100 years. I don't know where that number comes from. It's not prediction. It's actually based on airspace calculation. So, and that should be within reasons, the lifespan, because you look at it as a bubble that you just calculate the volume within that bubble. So it's all calculated. So I don't know where he came up with the 100 years. It's based on the excavation and the final fill grade that we're trying to achieve. That's how we usually do the calculation. The current contractor assumes it's probably about 25 years. So it's not like we just went from 100 years to 20 years because the landfill has been filled. That's misconception. So it just, I don't know where that 100 years came from. It should be a science, it should be calculated. And that's the numbers we calculate. So just to let you know, it's not backfilled with waste where we lost 80 years over 2 years.
All right, thanks, Ramsey. Thanks for that clarification. I don't know where he got 100 years from. I just remember him saying that.
On the other hand, it doesn't matter what we're dealing with is today.
Right.
And the best information we have today. And so we have information that says the landfill, the rate of landfill is filling up is higher than it was before. And we're going to have less lifetime for the size of landfill, unless we're gonna build another one again. At that location, not likely to happen. But again, that's one of the things that they are potentially looking at in this operations study. So looking from what we know today, Deb, you've had a comment.
Yeah, thank you. So along with Melissa said about the landfill and comments, you know, it came out in an article, about 2 years ago, just when we started to move trash to Pu'uanga. And at that time, they gave the life of it, at 50 years. But at the rate it's going, according to the record, it's 200,000 tons a year. But that landfill is holding all of this island's trash.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, if we're gonna be talking about, and we are, and I'm glad we do, about how we need to recycle better. Until we get to the point we need to be at, we still need to start looking for land or other options for the landfill, because it will fill up faster. And then all this talking about we don't even have a piece of land yet. And if the crisis is so bad, I would think any one of these agencies that own land will at least give us the land, because if I'm not mistaken, Pu'uanga was given by executive order. So I'm just saying, if we're gonna talk about all the ideal ways of doing things, which we should, in the meantime, we need to look for somewhere now, or another option, which is, nobody wants to hear it, but it's incineration, because I see all the testimony going towards that. But that's all I'm saying, we can't wait till.
It's kind of like John was saying, it's a lot of parallel activities, and again, looking for another landfill site on the east side, probably, is also part of this wondrous contract, that we'll hopefully hear about. Kelly, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted, again, just remind folks that we just kicked off the operational study. So we're going to be, reviewing the feasibility of all these things you're talking about. And we're also going to be setting up stakeholder interviews with all of you. We'd like to maybe set up a public meeting where our consultant can give a presentation in a public setting, so we can get you guys back and forth included. Otherwise, we're limited, I think, to two of you at a time. So we'll be looking into all these things. We'll also be looking at the staffing needs, any kind of enforcement we do, we're going to need a budget, we're going to need a staffing to make it work. So, I would just urge you to meet with our consultants when they reach out to you, and we can continue this conversation. But we're moving forward on this project, and I think it's a great step, and it's very comprehensive. So I was trying to copy the scope of the project here in the chat. I'll work on that. That's all.
Thank you. Laura?
Thank you, Chair. So I think that the timeline that we're speaking of is really important. Again, my question was similar earlier, but it did kind of get addressed around the 150 years down to 15. But now I'm still hearing that the timeline is somewhere between 25 years, perhaps, and in other circles being shared that it's 15. So I'm wondering if Director Ramsey, if you can, if we can see the statistics and or the calculations that a little bit more tangibly as to how the timeline is being is come upon, and then also, or an even better would be an independent assessment, so that we can really have an accurate view on this. And then the other piece, secondly, is again back to the paradigm shift of, if it's truly an emergency, we need to stop producing waste. And so a focus in our direction is to again, go back to this zero waste model and, extended producer responsibility, refill, reuse, education, all of these components to increasing our infrastructure around reuse and local production. And not only reuse, but also compostable materials for packaging. And so looking at that as a forerunner, if we're truly in this emergency, we need to address our waste production model.
You got it.
So we need to take a vote on your motion.
Yeah, I
You guys
guess.
are getting into the weeds of it.
We're going into, so that getting back to whatever the heck we said the motion was, what your motion was. That we would go forward to, council, to start working on, an ordinance to restrict, ban the, landfilling of designated recyclable materials. That would authorize the EPA to issue rules to make that happen. Whatever good words should be said for that motion. Do you have a comment for that? Lee, put your hand up, so I'll say no. Yes, we need tons of data. This study, which hopefully will come up shortly, in the director's report. That we'll hear more about the details are going on. This is changing, the county ordinance is not gonna be a next week kind of deal. So I think we'll have plenty of time. We'll need to have, public participation. Hear from others, who are in the biz on what feasibility is, hear from generators, particularly on the commercial side, what they think about it and why they aren't already doing it themselves. And details to come. So do we take that next step and contact Heather or no? Could I have a vote in favor of the motion? Yes, the motion was seconded.
Hi.
Melissa?
No, I'm just saying we're voting, right? Are we voting now?
Can you reread the motion, please? Reread the motion.
Me? The motion would be to contact chair of the county council requesting an ordinance related to banning recyclables from landfill or another generally resource or waste diversion, landfill diversion. And someone's gonna write that letter.
Yeah, and I'll draft a letter and offer the draft that I have, offer that little short version of it. It just authorizes DEM to do some rules. And the draft was meant to be a talking paper, not the ordinance.
I'll second that.
So a vote. All in favor? Aye.
And it's,
I,
Do you have a question, Laura?
I just was wondering if we need to specifically state commercial haulers, being that that was kind of more of the discussion, or you're just still talking about in general?
In general.
In general, with the guidance, if you will, the start at the commercial generator level.
I think we'll get enough blowback to start with.
7 eyes.
All right, thank you very much. I will write up a draft letter to bring to the meeting next month. And if we could send it out sooner, so you can see it in plenty of time, you could bring your comments. And then we'll see where we go from there. I'm not even sure which committee of the council we'd be working with. And so I figured out their committee structures. So thank you. Item 5.3 deals with residential used motor oil UMO program that the county does. And this was Laura's concern and initiative, so I'm going to ask her to lead the discussion. And is Craig still on the line? Yes. So take it away, Laura.
Aloha. No, I just was asked by a council member to, to check in. I have not personally had the moment to reach out with Craig, and so I intend to do that as well. But since you're here, Craig, thank you so much for giving an update. I think the concern was, of course, that there is no drop-off location for recycling in Hilo, and to prevent dumping and other putting it down the chute, for example. We wanted to see what we can do, and the council member is willing to help with that. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, so I guess what we looked at, am I on the screen or?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so what we looked at is the I think the biggest problem is the illegal dumping when the volunteer sites are closed, and that was the biggest problem that they were facing. So we checked with the colleges, we checked with other garages, oil changing places, and they all said they all declined. So I'm not sure if we even incentivize it. It might make a change or not. But yeah, the problem is the illegal dumping that occurs.
Specifically, you're meaning after hours when the location itself is closed? Okay.
Yeah, when the store is closed, that's what was happening.
And they're dumping it on site.
Yeah, and it's not knowing what's in the container that they drop off, whether it's contaminated or if it's really oil or not.
Do you know if the other locations are having that same issue?
It wasn't mentioned. Yeah. I guess it's not a big of an issue like in Hilo, I guess.
But I would think that,
Yeah.
I would think it would, we as a DM should contact them and keep regular conversations with them to see how we can help them along the way, because that's what monitoring would probably be about, so we can catch it real early, how we can help them. Otherwise, we will lose them as well, I think. Thank you.
And then is there then a county program that could be the collection, or somehow we could contract that specifically for used motor oil, especially being that it's such an issue in Hilo? There must be a lot of used motor oil. And then also if other retailers decide to stop it as well for the same reason.
Yes, we're looking at all options right now.
Is there things on the table at this point that you can share with us?
Not really at this point, yeah.
And okay, so when would that be available?
Maybe by next month. It's just that we're like Ramsey said, we're just understaffed. So we're basically triple dutying all our things right now.
Just in addition to that, please, if you have a chance, read the scope that was given to the consultant. Kelly has attached it. I think we crossing all these topics, and you guys getting ahead of the game. But if you read the scope that Kelly attached, all of the topics that you guys talked about, it's already addressed as bulleted item that the consultant, the third party, gonna analyze as an independent party. Laura, that also addresses your landfill space. And it says landfill practices capacity, lifespan, vertical, horizontal, or deeper utilization of the space. So that kind of addresses, you know, the confirmation from a third party. So if you get a chance, read it that way. We don't have to speculate and go into different discussions. I think we could focus on the topics at hand. Thank you.
Okay, so the solid waste operations analysis, that I assume that's what's showing up on the chat, is item 722. So we've crossed that a couple times, and I think what we need is to have that scope of work copied out to us, Peter.
Okay.
So that we can all see what else in there. There's a lot in there. Basically, I think back to the used motor oil issue. It is a volunteer program. Neon to Go, Recycle Hawaii as a nonprofit was acting kind of like a broker, lining up volunteers and making sure that they understood what to do, and even finding contractors who had these totes to dump oil into, and just making sure the thing was working. The past administration wanted Recycle Hawaii to take on a new contract to basically take possession, be responsible for the oil in those totes. And I was president of Recycle Hawaii at the time, and I seriously said, no, our nonprofit does not want to take ownership of that used oil. We were just providing this service, kind of a staff, chasing down volunteers and making things were working. So the issue will be coming back to EMC, specifically, what can we do about it? It's basically, do something about it, DEM. And they have the slots for hiring people, they can't find people to hire. So what can EMC do about that? I don't know. I think, going back to council, it's anybody who you could sweet talk into, please O'Reilly or whoever is in Hilo, will you make this happen? And as part of the education program, make sure everybody knows it's not a good thing to just dump it out in the drain.
Chair.
Everybody knows that. Who said chair? Laura. Okay.
So do they currently take used motor oil at the household waste collection events?
Yeah.
The hazardous waste, I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, motor oil, great.
So at least that's twice a year, is that right?
Well, is that once?
Twice a year in Hilo and Kona, and once a year in Puna and Waimea.
So that's,
So we're asking our residents to hold on to their oil for half a year to get it disposed of. Is that the gist of what we're saying here?
Well, most people aren't changing their car oil every month.
Well, not every month, no, but I mean, if you
I
change
mean,
your
we
oil,
do stuff.
you gotta sit on it until it comes to a hazardous
Yes,
waste.
and take it there,
Yeah,
4 to 6 months.
possibly.
Yeah. Is an average.
so it is a way to deal with it, not a real convenience.
And the problem with collecting it is from private individuals is contamination. If you mix it in with water and it's worthless, right? So controlling the returning oil is a major problem.
Did we move on?
So I think we need to move, I don't know that we have an answer for that or a motion to what it is we can do about it, other than good luck, Craig.
Well, I mean, the answer is an easy one, as far as an answer goes, but actually getting participation is the hard part, and that is that if you are changing your own oil, you pay for its collection at the point of purchase when you buy the new oil. And that way you can get somebody who is interested in controlling it when it's received in small quantities.
Well, if you look at the options, in the director's report, in part 1 on page 6, it outlines some recommendations. And I think those are probably good recommendations. It's not clear to me how the state changed what they were doing in terms of collecting monies and allocating it. I have to admit, I didn't go back and really read this one hard. Are you asking in these recommendations for EMC to support one or more? Right, Ramsey?
Go ahead, Greg. I think ultimately, yes, if you look at bulleted item number 1, we definitely need to start looking at funding opportunities, and with your assistance as well. As you mentioned, is volunteer program, but there's certain locations now are taking it. The challenge is like what John said, if you do your own oil change in your backyard and it get contaminated, it become useless. And we just need to go through the public education and educate. I don't know how much percentage within the island that people will take it up on themselves to do oil change. But nowadays with the synthetic oil, up to 5,000 to 10,000 miles. So you change it once every probably 6 months or so or more. So even with our collection twice a year, it should be adequate for people to maintain a container for 2 months in their garage or somewhere and take it to that collection site. In addition to that volunteered places that they need to take the oil to. So there is an option currently. We could work with the consultant also to navigate with the State Department, as you know, because it's a state-funded program. You pay for it when you buy the oil. State of California used to provide secondary containment, like what you see in these diesel gas structure that you see in certain areas, base yards and what have you. But it used to be to collect oil at each transfer station. So maybe that's an approach if the state willing to follow suit and fund these type of units. It may be good to have them at multiple transfer station, but we have to find somebody that willing to come pump the oil and recycle it. So, these are the things that we're going to be talking with the consultant during that operation study, brainstorming it, see what other options we may have and how would they recommend to go about it.
Okay, then what I'm hearing is, we'll circle back on this once we see the, operations report. And in the meantime, for you, Laura, going back, saying it's the household hazardous waste collection days. Save it up, make sure it's on your calendar, blinking lights, and take it those days. All right, move us on. We have actually it's now 10:30, right? Guest presentation.
Sorry, we have a request for break. recess.
Take a little break.
5 minutes.
5-minute break. Back. We're now at our new business item, which is an informational item, actually. That Delatsuka has asked for presentation by Stacy Brennan, and I'll let her introduce her so that we can learn some of the volunteer activities that are going on.
Hi, I'm very pleased to introduce Stacy. I hadn't met her, but I know that she goes to the different schools to educate the kids and they love it. So I want to thank Stacy for doing that for us.
I don't wanna.
Okay.
Oh, can you folks hear her? It's, yeah, I think it's pretty good in this room.
Yeah. Okay, let me get my screen shared here. I have a presentation for you folks. Load here, thank you for your patience. And I wanted to just add to that, because Stacy goes to the different schools, not once, but often, the kids actually take that information home. So that's what we want to do when we educate, we start with the kids, because the kids will share it with their parents, and the parents will say, oh, the kids will even correct their parents, so that makes it a lot easier to get it through, I think. Yeah, that's definitely my top intention here. It's not showing up, is it?
Can you brief recess? Work on this
It says loading.
in a recess rate.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, are we ready? Everybody can hear me okay? All right. Well, good morning, Commission. Mahalo for taking the time to hear about the work that Hawai'i Wildlife Fund and myself have been doing down in Kaulu and around the island. A lot of the work we've been doing is revolved around marine debris and plastic pollution. My name is Stacy Brennan, and I am an environmental educator. And I've been working with Hawai'i Wildlife Fund since 2009, doing community-based restoration work, mostly on the south side of the island, but like I mentioned, doing education all around the island. Hawai'i Wildlife Fund is a nonprofit organization founded in 1996 by Bill and Hannah. Those are the folks on the bottom left there in your screen. And our mission at Hawai'i Wildlife Fund is to protect our native wildlife through research, education, and conservation projects. We are small but mighty. We have only a handful of employees on this island, and we are based out of Paia, Maui, and Volcano. We do have a team on Maui doing similar work, but also working more directly with turtle conservation and marine tourism. And but most of our restoration and volunteer activities occur along the Kaulu coastline. And like I mentioned, we are doing environmental education around that. So while you are going to hear some beach cleanup stats during this presentation, I want you all to keep in mind that we are not just a beach cleanup organization. We are in fact restoring critical habitat for our native wildlife. So that is the driving factor with all of the work that we're doing, including our environmental education. So our story on Hawai'i Island began in 2003 when our co-founder, Bill Gilmartin, was called to check out a monk seal puppy, which was actually the first reported monk seal puppy in the main Hawaiian Islands. And it was near Camilo Point, which is really close to
This area that you see, in the photo, this is the aerial shot of the Hawai'i Coastal Forest Reserve, which we did get turned into forest reserve, to keep it protected from coastal development. But he stumbled upon Camilo, which is unfortunately known as Trash Beach, and you might be familiar with it. This is from the late 80s, early 90s, before anyone really started cleaning up down there. And then began our mission to clean the place up. This photo is more like 2017, and unfortunately, all of this trash is being brought in by the wind and the waves. Protecting this coastal strand in Ka'u has been a huge part of Hawaii Wildlife Fund's story, and our work removing the marine debris from this area is what has inspired our environmental education program. Okay. Marine debris is a global problem. I think that you all are very familiar with our waste issues on the island. But we also have this marine debris issue that we need to deal with as well. We have the waste we're creating as an island, and then the waste that is floating in. I don't really see there being an end all be all answer to this. As you all know, it's a very complex issue. And we've got to hit it from all the angles. So that's kind of where I came in to focus on the younger kids, elementary school age kids. We have a marine debris keep the outreach program, which is how Dell and I got connected, was through that program. And we are focused on prevention. That is our main thing, preventing marine debris. We strive to inspire the kids to become responsible consumers and say no to single-use plastic as much as possible. We offer small and relatively easy solutions for young kids or anyone underage that doesn't really have a lot of control in their lives, what they can do to prevent these sort of things. And it's as simple as giving them a sport at school so that they can at least not use a plastic fork every day. Most schools on the island get free or reduced school lunch, so most kids are getting a plastic fork with their meal every single day. So that's just one little small thing that they can do. And I think kind of why I'm here is like, how can we as adults working in the system, making choices for our families, how can we actually move the needle on this issue? And that's the big question of the day. Last school year, I had a teacher ask me, Stacey, I've got this soda bottle and I can recycle the bottle, but I really just don't know what to do with the bottle cap. Where can I put it? Do you know of any places that I can recycle this? No. The answer, and then the answer, the kind straight up answer is stop buying it in the first place, right? Stop buying it in the first place. Then we don't have to worry about where we're going to put the bottle cap. Okay. So marine debris is a global problem with global solutions. These are some St. Joe's students down at Kauai, checking out the coastal ecosystem there. We also did a beach cleanup that day. Last school year, we reached 447 Hawaii Island students, and by we, I mean I. That's me alone, running around on a part-time schedule, making that happen. And it wasn't just our marine debris KP outreach, it included our coastal ecosystems program, which is more about inspired stewardship, and then our Honolulu Ike, which is the endangered Hawaiian hawksbill sea turtle biology. So one of those three programs has hit all those students. And I'm really proud about that, but I'm also really excited to see how much more we can reach this school year. Now that I have an intern that's going to be on her feet and helping out. So our education programs are more of our proactive approach in reducing plastic consumption and pollution. More of our reactive tools that we have are our volunteers. So we are 95% of our efforts are from volunteers. We've amassed over 47,000 documented volunteer hours in the last 20 years. They are our best tools for removing marine debris. And then while we're at these beach cleanups too, we're able to help educate those folks on some of those simple daily steps that they can do to reduce their consumption, and then they act as, you know, like a little beacon of light where they can then ripple out their decisions. They're going to inspire their family members or folks in their circle to also do the same sort of actions. So on average, now this data is before the pandemic. This is from 2008 to 2018. On average, each volunteer was hauling about 81 pounds of debris per beach cleanup. That's dropped off a lot in the last handful of years, not because our plastic production has been down, but because just ocean oscillations. We're going right now from a La Nina into an El Nino, and so now we're starting to see more debris wash up as a result of that. But we had a big lull the last handful of years, so that average might be down now. And then also keep in mind, when we first started cleaning up, there was a lot of trash there. So those earlier years had bigger numbers, and then over time we've also just been cleaning more and more often. So just something to keep in mind. We've from Hawai'i Island alone, we're just over 325 tons of marine debris removed from our coastlines. So for the last 20 years, it's about 17 tons per year. That's washing in addition to everything that we're creating while here. That said, we do have some efforts within the state outside of the island. And in that case, we've removed over 370 tons of debris. That includes Maui, where our other team is, and Midway and French Frigate Shoal. We had some beach cleanups there in the early years. White Wildlife Fund that has contributed to this bigger number. This is a shot of our, like a little map of our island that shows where our marine debris concentration is. So this is again from 2003 through 2021. High density areas being more yellow, lower density areas being darker from like pink into purple. So you can easily see that down south is where a lot of this stuff is accumulating and washing regularly. And then we've got smaller hotspots around the island where we have done smaller, you know, beach cleanups with school groups or private groups, businesses and whatnot. And there's a little bit of marine debris that washes up in other spots of the island, but not in this high concentration. It's not so. I'm not sure how many of you all have been down to Camilo. This is a shot of our survey area. We've been monitoring this 100 meters here for a good amount of time to try and see what kind of accumulation rates we can figure out about this stuff washing in. This is a before of our cleanup, and there's an after. There's another shot there. So in closing ish, I think a lot of what we preach is get people involved, getting them down to the coastline is really, it's really important because they can see with their eyes. Because even in those photos, these photos here of a clean beach, if you were to actually zoom in closer, you would see that the sand is really quite littered with microplastics. So it looks clean to the eye, but you zoom down and you start really seeing how deep the issue goes. And that can be really alarming. So if we can prevent it, that's the best thing that we can, that's how we can see our role here, is inspiring people to prevent marine debris by controlling, figuring out how to mitigate how much plastic they're consuming. And I'm not bashing all plastic here, okay, let's be real. We can't get away from it. You're gonna go crazy trying to avoid the stuff entirely. I mean, everything that's shipped here is on a plastic pallet wrapped in single-use plastic wrap. So we need to allow some grace for ourselves, but also know that this is what I tell the kids anyway. It's like when you go to the gym. If you work out one day, you're not really going to see any results. But if you go consistently over 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you're looking here like, oh, wow, I actually look much different, right? You're building those muscles. Reducing our footprint here it's in the same way. Small, easy things over time. We're not going to make it go away overnight. But if we can start somehow expanding our reach more to the general public and even more to the kids, then over time, these small efforts like bringing your water bottle, bringing your own, you know, to-go-ware, all of those sorts of things. You know, being mindful about what you're purchasing. Is it wrapped in single-use plastic? Do I need this? Is it a luxury? Is this a necessity? Getting people to think about these things before they purchase, that's what my goal. Like, we're not gonna stop everybody from doing it all the time, but if we can at least start getting people to look at their habits and what they're doing, their patterns, then we can hopefully then start seeing some change. And it's really up to county by county, right? That's how all these other single-use plastic bills passed in the past. We haven't been able to just get the whole state to do something. It's county by county. So I think it's really important that we're having these conversations here with the commission, because we need to figure something out for Hawaii Island. You guys obviously already know, we've been talking about it all morning with our bulging landfills. We're already having issues with the trash that we're generating as a community, let alone the 17 tons per year extra that's coming in. Now, I would like to also say that not all of it is going into the landfill. The big nets and stuff, we are able to ship to a walk to be incinerated, which again is not ideal in any way. But at least it's getting used for electricity there. Some small percentage has been diverted in the landfill for art, you know, big art installations, or even, you know, classrooms wanting to do little art projects with their students. We're always looking for ways to divert it where we can. But obviously the bulk of it has ended up in the landfill. So yeah, our next beach cleanup is going to be on August 19th. It's actually a hiking cleanup from it's a Kama'oa cleanup, so more towards South Point, hiking from South Point and Green Sands on DHHL land, which we do have all the proper permitting to do something like that. So you're all welcome to join us for that. You know, if you want to get together, I'd be happy to put a separate day on the calendar for all you folks to get down there to see it firsthand. That my email is also down here. We also have our website, wildhawaii.org, where you can look at our calendar and check out upcoming events. Let's see. Yeah. And we want folks really, when it comes to plastic, we want folks to be more proactive. We want to inspire people to be more proactive about it. And, you know, there's a lot of hoops and tape that you all have to jump through to get certain legislation and things passed. So my role has been to inspire people to do what they can outside of this sort of situation. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to take any questions if you all have.
So the stuff you do landfill, okay?
No, we have permits though to dump it. No, we have proper channels to be able to dump it.
Fee waivers, I process them.
Yeah.
Okay, plastic, you know, ordinance passed not too long ago about using compostable items over plastic. Not too long ago, and now it doesn't seem to be enforced or really used anymore. Because I go to a restaurant, there's plastic containers given to me for food to go or something like that.
The ordinance, I think, was for styrofoam.
Yes. Okay.
And so, unfortunately, the loophole there was that folks are now using just other plastics that aren't compostable necessarily, just another clamshell, harder plastic that's not styrofoam.
Okay.
And I also noticed a big, once COVID hit, I saw a lot of businesses reverting back to using the single-use plastics for sanitation issues.
Are there any questions?
In the Zoom, the sharing.
Sure, yes, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Keep up the good work. I guess I do have a question. Do you have any sense of where the plastic comes from?
It's coming from all over the Pacific. Yeah, most of it is unidentifiable, small pieces, plastic gets really, brittle when it's in the sun for a long time, so everything is sort of broken up into small pieces. Sometimes we get things with writing on it, we can identify it. Every once in a while, we'll get a tag with an address and a number, we can figure out where that came from, but anywhere in the Pacific, we found stuff.
I was looking at Kahaluu, a year ago, and, whole mess of, old fishing line came up and was in the sensitive area of that lagoon. And they pulled it out and brought it over to the, lifeguard station and dumped it there. So all that plastic was still going into the bay. So is there somebody we can call or something like that that can actually, come and clean the plastic out of the sand and that sort of thing and actually take that stuff out?
Yeah, if you ever find any large net bundles that wash up anywhere, call us. Where we have the rig to be able to haul that away. And then we do have a pile at the Hawai'i transfer station where we kind of stage the big net piles that come in about once a year. We send a 40-foot maximum container over to Oahu to do the chopping and burning H power. Yeah, like smaller things. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy.
For,
My pleasure.
getting her to us.
Appreciate your work.
Thank you. I'd like to move now to the reports, correspondence, and director's informational report. First one up is the legislative update. Randy, are you there?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm here, yes. You guys had a great discussion of Stacy's looking to move jobs and apply for the county as our public information officer. She's, we need somebody like her for sure. As far as the director evaluation report, you guys, I would imagine, went through it, and you have talked about most of the items that we have included in that report. So since we already at 11 o'clock, so I'm gonna fly over some of these topics. I just want to make sure the discussion about the ordinances, and I heard that you guys gonna move with the recommendation to county council as well. Just keep in mind operational study. One of the tasks is also to explore any possible policies, procedure, ordinances that may come out of the study. So, just keep that in mind, because I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse as we are exploring the wider spectrum of options, policies, procedures, recycling, and what have you. So just keep that in mind, because eventually that study is going to lead to maybe implementation of how we're gonna move forward with the solid waste operation that we have within the county. So that's the reason everyone is gonna be involved. The public is gonna be involved on the options, and we want to hear everybody's concern so we could convey it and potentially make it to policies and procedure and ordinances. So just keep that in mind. Peter,
We figure, or at least I figure that the ordinance making process is a long haul. So we should have plenty of opportunity to incorporate the learnings from that study.
yes, as long as we don't present it in pieces, I just want to make sure that what we're gonna present and you guys gonna present, it doesn't, become solid as we do the study, rather than come back and forth and not be able to answer questions that somebody may have. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying that, we've got to be on the same page.
Yes. And I think you all gonna participate, and I do believe this study is way long due. We need it. We need to, because it keep coming up, from diversion to recycling to the lifespan of the current landfill. We've been, as you all know, we've been talking to Waste Management Hawaii on potentially getting a cost savings on their contract, because the tonnage we pay for them every year to kind of design, monitor, and construct the cells for us. So, and they did come back. It's tentative now. They came back with, the way I look at it, maybe a good saving, but it's not what we anticipate. But without the study, it's hard to move forward with the right decision, because if we do get the saving, they want it to give us additional lifespan to that landfill, and we may extend it, longer. It depends on the analysis, because we could go deeper to gain more capacity on the cells that has not been constructed. But to go deeper, that means we have to go and renew the permit, update the permit, but it's better than chasing the siting of a new landfill. But there's pros and cons, but we need to look into it in more detail. I don't want to give too much information because I really don't have it yet till I sit down with consultant and the public and everybody else to put my hand around the needs and do's and don't, so we could deliver a good product to our constituents. And we have our recycling coordinator here with us, and Kelly, and they could give updates. And I think you guys already have, Kelly did it from one project at least for the operation, but from a solid waste, our division shorthanded, but our staff, kudos to our staff. They've been doing a great job multitasking and trying to get to where we need and keep the services going. Equipments, we've been getting the equipments. Finally, trailers are being delivered. As you all know, it took us about more than a year just to get a few trailers from the mainland to here. I hope at one point that backlog due to COVID kind of goes away and things comes back to normal. But that's still the challenge. Some of the equipment we still have not received. Waihino transfer station, we have the blessing for it. You know, as you see from the picture that was attached, it's ended up being a very beautiful site. Eventually, hopefully this place will be maybe benefiting the entire Kau district. Commissioner Liam McIntosh was there. He witnessed it, and I hope he liked what he saw. And go ahead.
Can I back you up on the legislative report on this resolution requesting the DOH solid waste section to develop a plan of initiatives for improved waste diversion by working with counties? Have you gotten any activity on that for how Hawaii County is going to participate?
We have not, I have not, but Greg, is that the meeting you attended for me? Or that was different? We have not got anything. I personally have not got anything from them.
Okay, just checking and, you know, encourage participation and also wrapping in EMC input on that.
That's for sure.
Okay, go on. Anything else? Anybody had questions about the solid waste recycling? Thank you very much for all the information you've got in there. It's good to see all the education outreach programs. I guess one thing maybe question on the grants status. We're still waiting for the grant that would go to, is that both the county and to the program that Jennifer Navarro talked about last time?
Yeah, we're still waiting on that one.
Sorry?
Oh, we're still waiting on that announcement yet.
But we didn't get the one for home composting.
Yeah, we didn't get that one. And they're working on with the grant writer right now.
So we're trying to redo the grant, or is it a new one that you can put in?
A new one. We're just looking at different possibilities or projects out there.
Does anybody else have any questions about the information under there? Not. Move on to wastewater.
The wastewater, Kelly, you wanna share that schedule, the master schedule, and just kind of go over Pahala and Alehu and the wastewater projects?
Sure. I have just a status update kind of prepared, if I can rattle through that, should answer your questions. So for Pahala and Alehu, we're in compliance with all the AOC deadlines. The draft PER for Pahala was completed ahead of schedule. It's being reviewed by the EPA. The Pahala environmental information contract scope and schedule is in development. and the Nalehu PER contract was executed and is in progress. Our semi-annual report was submitted and our milestones on deck for this project. The EP, like I said, EPA is still reviewing the Pahala preliminary engineering report. We're hoping to get approval or revisions when we meet with them Monday for our quarterly meeting. They are a bit behind schedule, so we're hoping they can hurry up because our deadlines are not changing to close the cesspools. The next deadline is to submit the environmental information document, and that is going to happen 180 days after the PER is approved by EPA. And then we'll start on the cesspool closure implementation plan, which is due 30 days after the approval of the environmental information document. Moving on to Puna. The final definition report was completed. We filed the draft PEIS to the state in February. We completed the draft facility plan and county review. And the public comment period was ended last month on the 7th. Milestones on deck for this project include we will file the final environmental impact statement September 23rd. That is our target deadline. And the county plans to reopen the link to comment on the website once we go public with the facility plan in a month or two. And we plan to coordinate a presentation with some of the committees with the county council to drum up some conversation and comments on that. For the Pulco and South Kohala Regional Wastewater Master Plan, that project executed, I guess a year ago. We did renegotiate an earlier delivery date with the consultant, so we're going to get the master plan 6 months early. The draft PER, or excuse me, the draft project definition report was completed last month. And the final was completed this month.
Question about that, Kelly, you've got this fabulous looking story map. I think the word is used online. Have you gotten a lot of public input?
We have a lot of public input and a lot of agency input. And I don't have the comments in front of me to give you a number, but I would say we have at least 40 comments that have come across my desk. It's possible that some have come straight to the contractor as well.
Yeah. I'm all for public participation and making sure that people are aware of what's going on, nice progress. I was going to ask, you hearing anything pro or con on the Naleo Pahala activities league?
From the public, we're set to have
Commissioner Matt, if he's heard any buzz as well.
No, honestly, nobody really talks about it.
Out of sight, out of mind.
But I'd be
I mean,
curious to.
because they're, they can still use it, so it hasn't affected them. It's just, those are
To the water, but you can't make
the only thing they're concerned about is it gonna cost them and what's the inconvenience gonna be? And y'all addressed most of their concerns, I guess, at the meetings you've held, so nobody, at least no one's talking to me.
Yeah, once we get the preliminary engineering report approved and we are solid in the direction of the project, we'll probably get some feelings on the project, especially for Pahala, where we're heading towards independent wastewater systems. So folks, that's going to take a significant amount of community coordination with contractors. So you will be hearing things.
Regina, I have a question.
Yeah.
On the comments that you get from the public, is it possible for us to know what some of them are? So that we know what the public is thinking, not just the DM? Unless. Is that
Yes.
possible?
So for the preliminary, programmatic environmental impact statement, the comments all have to be addressed together. And so there's like a public period where you can actually review. And we will get, just a summary of that information. I would have to just make sure that that's public information. I'd have to run that by council just to make sure.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Are you looking to start to survey the remaining small lot subdivisions in Puna in terms of how you're gonna deal with the wastewater situations there?
Yep, so the facility plan for Puna will be coming out in August or September. And so we plan to coordinate a meeting with one or more of the committees. We're not sure if we want to do the asset committee or the finance committee or the planning committee, because they're kind of all would be interested in that subject. So that would be, and it's not required to be public, but we think it needs to be, because the dollar figure is going to be high. So the county needs to figure out, what they're gonna get behind. So that will be coming, and I'll keep you posted on what that date ends up being.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt you. Go. Trying to get back to where you were, John.
Nope, all good. So I think I left off in Poolco, and so the Poolco draft wastewater management plan is the next milestone for that project, and we'll be looking for that in November of this year, and then the final is about a year from now in June. So we have, some other projects that aren't on the agenda. The POA project. We just kicked off the integrated wastewater management plan contract, which includes the cesspool conversion plan and the wastewater treatment plant facility plans. And we've been working on a capital improvement plan with the EPA and the consultant. So that is to evaluate and prioritize capital improvement projects and create a financial plan for those. And I think that's all the projects I'm working on personally. I can give you a really brief update on, Hilo and the West Side projects if you like, but I'm not as intimately involved with those ones.
Well, maybe Ramsey can poke in there. I'm just looking at the charts, and again, thank you for those charts, the ones that I look at least part is the late tasks, and what does that mean? Hilo is the one that's got them. And is there anything that EMC can help with, consider, be aware
of? As far as Hilo, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, where I asking you, what's the scoop on Hilo? Last I heard from you, it was the contract proposal amount for doing still the first phase, but the second phase maybe was double what you thought you were gonna be dealing with, so way out of budget. How are you coping?
Yeah, phase one, as you all aware, went out to bid early this year. The bid opening was in April. our engineer's estimate was about 104 plus and minus 10 to 15%. It came up at 177. One contractor bid it. There was no competition. It was the bid was canceled, and we are joining phase 1 and 2 together now. And we just had a meeting with the consultant over the 50% of phase 1. So our projected schedule to put it out on the street by the end of the year, awarded hopefully by June of next year for phase 1 and 2, with the hope that we get both of them now within the budgeted amount we have. We set aside, as you all know, we may be targeting the $200+ million. So we see, hopefully the market gets better by then. Hopefully we get more contractors, more competition. Just the numbers were unreasonable, particularly for phase 1. It's almost double the engineer's estimate, and we couldn't justify it as we were looking at the breakdown. So that's for Hilo. So with the hope that, and we're gonna do it with alternate bids, so we guarantee that whatever bid amount it comes in, at least we could select and choose what items need to be constructed, so we don't have to fall through any predicament of not doing anything because we have to do something. So the way we structure in the contract to allow us that opportunity. And that's for Hilo. Our guys still doing a good job maintaining the operation. But let's keep our finger crossed, and hopefully we get more competition at a better price. Any other questions?
Anything? I'm not seeing anything.
Chair, I have a question I had put in the chat, just in reference to your legislative question towards the director. What's the bill number that you were referring to, so that we can reference it?
There was a resolution.
A resolution.
It's in part 1 of the director's report, for whatever reason I closed. I'm not hooked up to the Zoom, so I can't
Oh,
see.
sorry. No problem. I just didn't want to interrupt.
No, that's fine. SDR 64 SD1.
Thank you. SDR 64 SD1. Mahalo.
Anything else from DEM? I had one information request, and that was just this concept that you kind of teased us with before, Ramsey, about countywide sewer district. We do it all in one big doodle. There been any progress on that? Or what's the next step?
Yeah, Kelly hit on that contract we just signed to do the countywide integrated waste management plan. At least now we got a consultant is working on it. We've been talking about the wastewater management, integrated waste management plan since we started, if you guys recall.
Mhm.
So we had the kickoff. And that wastewater integrated management plan is gonna have a cesspool conversion master plan within it, is gonna have facility planning. They're gonna evaluate the hydraulics for all of our collection system countywide to see what capacity we have remaining, how many we could allow for connections, etc., and what type of improvement we need to make for all of our our current facilities. And the financial planning, that's kind of segue into your question. They're gonna look at how we're gonna finance cesspool conversion, how we're gonna, is it through a community districts, is it through state funding, or is it through homeowners? So that all will be looked into. And also that study could lead to policies and procedures, because everybody's going to be involved as well, especially when it hits major capital projects needs, and especially the cesspool conversion, as everyone is very concerned about the cost for each individual homeowner. So that's gonna be just fasten your seatbelt as the consultants start reaching out to you, and we're gonna have public meetings. They're gonna meet with council members. They're gonna meet with you guys, and they're gonna establish public hearing workshops with the idea of coming up with a good roadmap that any of our constituents that lives here on the island could use their parcel number to be able to say, yes, I should have my own IWS, or let's not do it, wait till the county bring their sewer. So it's gonna be, there's gonna be great analysis as we move forward.
Right, and just on behalf of the commission, I did send in some personal comments on the Pucco, South Kapala, master plan, as it's posted now, and we'll certainly look at this, anything coming out of the master plan integrated, using the guidelines that we sent to DEM, and just making sure that we're covering the breadth of what we did. And I need to make sure you've got that dot, so you can help make sure they're incorporating all the different issues that we think are important. And I know that our Rick Gaffney is also still looking over it and submitted comments on the South Kapala plan. So we're still keeping our eyeballs on it, and certainly want to encourage the concept and love that you're looking at innovative ways to achieve wastewater management. So thank you for that. Which contractor are you using for the integrative?
We're using Corolla Engineering.
I'm sorry, you garbled there. What?
Corolla.
Corolla, okay. Okay, thank you. Anything else from DEM? Any questions? Are we ready to move to item 8? Future agenda items. I'll bring the draft of letter to start moving the concept of the ordinance for recyclables. I'm going to try to pin down Nick Resnick from Monaco Recycling to come and talk to us as well. We have an outstanding request to Corporation Council. Senior moment, sorry. For whatever it is, we asked her to review. Oh, that's her office, okay.
The minutes.
Anyway, they owe us something on, thank you for the follow-up. Look at my notes. Anything else that, people know now? If not, let me and Peter know, and I'll try to work it up into the agenda.
I'm sorry, I missed the testimonies this morning. There are a lot of testimonies.
Just one.
Oh, not the written ones.
Oh, we don't, no.
No, you read the written, we all read the written probably, and I've already tweaked the draft I have in one of the comments that I threw in like,
So that would be something for the next meeting on the agenda.
well, if you want to address some of the topics that have been raised in the testimony.
Should I move them?
You don't have to do it now, if you want to write it up and send it.
Oh,
To work on it.
We'll work
Put
it
it on
in.
the agenda.
yeah.
That way we can kind of preload on our
Yeah.
stuff too, yeah.
Okay, good.
You know what, I'm still blanking on the corporation council. And you notice she's not typing in and saying what it is, so I didn't talk about it. Great.
Painting our feet.
Can we get funding for solid waste other than going through property tax at the county level? Without having to go to the state and rely on them to pass the money to us like they should have. For whatever reason, keep finding excuses why they're not gonna pass money. So, we'll see if she's ready. Number 9, announcements. Our next meeting is in Hilo. As well as Zoom at the conference room. And otherwise, hopefully that'll stick. That's a Tuesday. For what it's worth, so it's a little bit of our trying out what works and what doesn't work. Anything else anybody wants to bring up today, or I will take a motion for it. Yes, first.
Moved.
Okay, I move to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any reason anybody wants to talk about why not? Have a good weekend and then rest of the month.
It's only Tuesday.
It feels like Friday.
Thank you, everybody.
Is there a vote? Is there a vote to adjourn?
I think we voted.
Aye.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye. There was an opposed. Oh, no, you made the wrong counter.
Thank you.
We're getting punchy.
7
but
ayes.
Obviously, time to adjourn. So thank you very much. Good conversations today.
Thank you.
Have a good trip, Laura.
Bye.